Hello, friends. If this joke tickled your funny bone, don't forget to hit subscribe. It's an easy way to keep the humor flowing into your feed. Don't miss the last one. That is special joke for you.
A couple of women were playing golf one sunny Saturday morning. The first of the twosome teed off and watched in horror as her ball headed directly toward a foursome of men playing the next hole. Indeed, the ball hit one of the men, and he immediately clasped his hands together at his crotch, fell to the ground, and proceeded to roll around in evident agony. The woman rushed down to the man and immediately began to apologize. She explained that she was a physical therapist. "Please allow me to help. I'm a physical therapist, and I know I could relieve your pain if you'd allow me," she told him earnestly. No, I'll be all right. I'll be fine in a few minutes," he replied breathlessly as he remained in the fetal position, still clasping his hands together at his crotch. But she persisted, and he finally allowed her to help him. She gently took his hands away and laid them to the side. She loosened his pants and she put her hands inside. She began to massage him. She then asked him, "How does that feel?" To which he replied, "It feels great, but my thumb still hurts like hell." An old man walked into the bank and stood in the queue. When it was his turn, he handed his bank card to a bank teller and said, "I would like to withdraw 10 pounds. The teller told him, "For withdrawals less than 100 pounds, please use the ATM." The old man wanted to know the reason for this. The teller returned his bank card and told him, "These are the bank rules. Rules are rules. Now, sir, please leave if there is nothing else I can help you with. There is a queue behind you, and you will find the ATM outside." The old man remained silent for a few seconds, then handed the card back to the teller and said, "Yes, can I withdraw all my money?" The teller was astonished when she checked the account balance. She shook her head, leaned over, and whispered, "But, sir, you have 80,000 pounds in your account, and the bank doesn't have that much cash currently. Could you make an appointment and come back tomorrow?" The old man then asked, "How much can I withdraw today?" The teller told him any amount up to 5,000 pounds. "Well, better give me 5,000 pounds just now." The teller then handed it very friendly and respectfully to him. The old man put 10 pounds in his wallet and stood a couple of seconds before asking the teller to deposit 4,990 pounds back into his account. Little Johnny was sitting in class doing math problems when his teacher picked him to answer a question. "Johnny, if there were 5 birds sitting on a fence and you shot one with your gun, how many would be left?" "None," replied Johnny, "'cause the rest would fly away." "Well, the answer is 4, said the teacher, "but I like the way you're thinking." Little Johnny says, "I have a question for you. If there were 3 women eating ice cream cones in a shop, one was licking her cone, the second was biting her cone, and the third was sucking her cone, which one is married?" "Well," said the teacher nervously, "I guess the one sucking the cone." "No," said little Johnny, "the one with the wedding ring on her finger, but I like the way you're thinking." A man was riding in the back of his limousine when he saw a man eating grass by the roadside. He ordered his driver to stop and he got out to investigate. "Why are you eating grass?" he asked the man. "I don't have any money for food," the poor man replied. "Oh, please come to my house." "But, sir, I have a wife and 4 children." "Bring them along," the rich man said. They all climbed into the limousine. Once underway, the poor fellow said, "Sir, you are too kind. Thank you for taking all of us in." The rich man replied, "No, you don't understand. The grass at my house is over 3 feet tall. Me and my 2 brothers wanted to give my grandma nice birthday gifts. My 2 brothers, both more wealthy than me, bought a brand new car and a beautiful cabin on lakefront property, respectively. I couldn't afford anything other than a talking parrot. However, this could have worked well for me because this particular bird was trained to quote Bible verses, and my grandmother is very religious. A week after her birthday, we each received a thank you letter from Grandma. To my first brother, "Hi, darling. Thank you for the new car, but my eyes and ears aren't what they used to be, and I'm not sure I can drive anymore. But thank you so much because it's the thought that counts, love. Nana." To my other brother, "Hello, dear child. Thank you for the cabin, but I'm afraid my eyesight isn't what it used to be and I can't fully appreciate the view. But thanks again, sweetheart. It's the thought that counts. Love, Nana." To me, "Hello, sweaty. I know you can't afford a great deal, but I appreciate what you gave me so much. It was precisely what I needed. The chicken was delicious, love, Nana." Jerry was at a marriage seminar, and the leader of the seminar, a lady, was asking everybody how long they were married for. When it was Jerry's turn, Jerry said that he had been married for almost 50 years. "Wow," the leader gushed. "That's amazing. Perhaps you can take a few minutes to share some insights with everybody about how you stay married to the same woman for so long." "Well," Jerry said after thinking for a few moments, "I try to treat her nice, buy her presents, take her on trips. And best of all, for our 25th anniversary, I took her to the Bahamas." "Well, that's really beautiful and a true inspiration for all of us," the lady said. "Maybe you can tell us what you're going to do for your 50th anniversary," she said with a smile. "Well," Jerry said, "I'm thinking of going back to the Bahamas to pick her up." The local bar was so sure that its bartender was the strongest man around that they offered a standing $1,000 bet. The bartender would squeeze a lemon until all the juice ran into a glass and hand the lemon to a patron. Anyone who could squeeze one more drop of juice out would win the money. Many people had tried, overtime, weightlifters, dockers, etc., but nobody could do it. One day, this scrawny little fellow came into the bar, wearing thick glasses and a polyester suit, and said in a small voice, "I'd like to try the bet." After the laughter had died down, the bartender said, "Okay," grabbed the lemon, and squeezed away. Then he handed the wrinkled remains of the rind to the little fellow. But the crowd's laughter turned to total silence as the man clenched his little fist around the lemon, and 6 drops fell into the glass. As the crowd cheered, the bartender paid the $1,000 and asked the little man, "What do you do for a living? Are you a lumberjack, a weightlifter, or what?" "Weightlifter," the little fellow quietly replied. "I work for the Australian Taxation Office. The new preacher moves his things into his new office and comes across the former pastor taking his items out. The former pastor says, 'I left 3 envelopes on your desk. If you have any trouble, open them.' Well, of course, the new preacher thinks he will never have to use them. But in his youthful enthusiasm, he tries to change the order the kids march in during vacation Bible school. Well, this makes the workers absolutely furious, and there is a lot of ugly talk about the new pastor. He remembers the envelopes and opens the first one. It says, 'You haven't been here long, but you decided to make a change in the vacation Bible school. Now everyone is mad. Tell everyone that the former preacher had told you this was how you preferred to do it.' So, the young preacher did that, and it worked well. He had been there about a year and a half when he tried to change the deacon position from being a lifelong job to a position that rotated annually. Well, this made the deacons really mad, and they were the ones who made his salary recommendation. So he went back to the drawer and got the second envelope. You did something to make the deacons mad, and there's talk of replacing you. Tell them this is the official denominational policy, that you thought they wanted to comply, but it doesn't make you any difference what they do." He tried this, and again it worked great. You guessed it. After 3 years, he finally told the women's organization that they were going to have to open the kitchen so that it could be used without a representative from the women's group being present. This put the women's organization in open revolt, so he went back to that third and final envelope. You've been here about 3 years, and you finally got the women's organization mad. The only thing to do is prepare 3 envelopes. Jean was out walking with his grandfather in Paris. At one point, they saw a shoemaker being insulted by a customer who claimed that there was something wrong with his shoes. The shoemaker calmly listened to his complaints, apologized, and promised to make up for the mistake. Jean and his grandfather stopped to have a coffee. At the next table, the waiter asked a man if he would mind moving his chair slightly so that he could get by. The man erupted in a torrent of abuse and refused to move. "Never forget what you have seen," said Jean's grandfather. The shoemaker accepted the customer's complaint, while this man next to us did not want to move. People who perform some useful task are not bothered if they hear some critics to their work, but people who do no useful work at all always think themselves very important and hide their incompetence behind their authority. An Irish painter by the name of Murphy, while not a brilliant scholar, was a gifted portrait artist. Over a short number of years, his fame grew, and soon people from all over Ireland were coming to the town of Milltown in County Clare to get him to paint their likenesses. One day, a beautiful young Englishwoman arrived at his house in a stretch limo and asked if he would paint her in the S. This being the first time anyone had made such a request, he was a bit perturbed, particularly when the woman told him that money was no object. In fact, she was willing to pay up to £10,000. Not wanting to get into any marital strife, he asked her to wait while he went into the house to confer with Mary, his wife. They talked much about the rightness and wrongness of it. It was hard to make the decision, but finally his wife agreed on one condition. In a few minutes, he returned. "Would it be my pleasure to paint your portrait, Mrs.?" he said. "The wife says it's okay." "I'll paint you in the all right, but I have to at least leave me socks on, so I have a place to wipe me brushes." The astonished woman replies, "I beg your pardon, sir. I must have misunderstood you. What did you say?" "Listen up, damn it. I said I want to open a damn checking account now." "I'm very sorry, sir, but that kind of language is not tolerated in this bank." The teller leaves the window and goes over to the bank manager to inform him of her situation. The manager agrees that the teller does not have to listen to that sort of language. They both return to the window, and the manager asks the old biker, "Sir, what seems to be the problem here?" "There is no damn problem," the man says. "I just won $50 million in the damn lottery, and I want to open a damn checking account in this damn bank." "I see," says the manager. "And is this bitch giving you a hard time?" The little Johnny, his uncle, and a cat on a farm. So, a father comes home to little Johnny one day and says that they'll have to move for a while. He's going out on a business trip, and his mother is in the hospital for a car accident, so little Johnny has to stay with his uncle for a while. His uncle is a farmer, and so little Johnny arrives on the farm. He's only allowed to bring what he can carry as well as his pet cat. So he meets with his uncle, and despite being a rather harsh man due to his work, he's well-meaning. Not to mention, he seems to be quite a fan of cats ever since his wife met an unfortunate end at the hoof of one of the farm's horses. So the little Johnny's going to bed, and he lets the cat out for the night. A few hours later, he wakes to the sound of screaming. He comes outside, and his uncle is running about absolutely swamped in baby chicks and kittens. They seem to have just sprung up overnight. He's trying to herd them all into a small, boxed-off area, but it's so damn difficult while trying not to hurt them. The little Johnny, naturally confused, asks what happened. The farmer replies, "Your cat got into the chicken's nest," to which little Johnny replies, "Yeah, so what?" His uncle promptly shoots back, "Haven't your parents told you what happens when you leave a Pusey and a Seeweezeeke alone in a house overnight?" A man celebrating his 100th birthday was asked by a reporter how he had managed to live so long. The man contemplated that question and looked over at his wife. She sat beside him, and a small smile played around her lips. He hesitated for a moment before he explained, "Well, son, I got married when I was 21. The wife and I decided that if ever we argued, the loser should take a long walk to cool off. So I guess I've benefited from 79 years of fresh air. My life is a mess, he says. My owner is mean, my girlfriend ran away with a schnauzer, and I'm as jittery as a cat. Just the other day, the postman almost ran me over. I was chased by the neighbor's cat, and then the paperboy managed to hit me with his paper toss. I think I have fleas, or at least I'm allergic to the new bird my owner got. All in all, I'm a total mess and don't know what to do. Why don't you go see a psychiatrist? Suggests the collie. I can't, says the poodle. I'm not allowed on the couch. One day, a wife was looking in the mirror, feeling a bit reflective. You know, I'm 55 years old now, she said to her husband, but one of your friends keeps complimenting me. The husband, not missing a beat, looked up from his newspaper and asked, Was it Bob by any chance? Surprised, the wife nodded. Yeah, how'd you know? With a grin, the husband replied, Well, that's easy. Bob is a scrap dealer. He's got an eye for old things that still hold some value. My son, if you keep spending on a woman and she never asked you if you're saving or investing, and she keeps enjoying the attention, don't marry her. My son, a woman could be a good wife to you. Some could be a good mother to your children. But if you found a woman like a mother to you, your children, and your family, please don't let her go. My son, don't confine the position of your wife to the kitchen. Where did you get that from? Even in our days, we had farmlands where they worked every morning. That was our office. My son, if I tell you that you're the head of the house, don't look at your pocket. Look if you will see a smile on your wife's face. My son, if you want to have a long life, let your wife be in charge of your salary. It will be difficult for her to spend it when she's aware of the home needs and bills to pay, but if it's in your care, she will keep you asking even when all has been spent. My son, don't ever beat your woman. The pain in her body is nothing to be compared to the wound on her heart, and that means you may be in trouble living with a wounded woman. My son, now that you're married, if you live a bachelor kind of life with your wife, you will soon be single again. My son, in our days, we had many wives and many children because of our large farmlands and many harvests. There is hardly any land for farming anymore, so embrace your woman closely. My son, under the big tree that I did meet your mother, could be your eateries and restaurants nowadays, but remember, the closet thing we did there was to embrace each other. My son, don't be carried away when you start making more money. Instead of spending on those tiny legs that never knew how hard you worked to get it, spend it on that woman that stood by you all along, my son, when I threw little stones or whistled at the window of your mother's father's house to call her out. It was not for It was because I missed her so much. My son, remember when you say your wife has changed, there could be something you've stopped doing, too. My son, your mother rode the bicycle with me before I bought that tortoise car outside there. Any woman that won't endure with you in your little beginning should not enjoy your riches. My son, don't compare your wife to any woman. There are ways she's enduring you too, and has she ever compared you to any man? My son, there is this thing you people call feminism. Well, if a woman claims to have equal rights with you in the house, divide all the bills into 2 equal parts. Take one part and ask her to start paying the other part. My son, I met your mother and I took more yams to her father. If you don't meet your wife as a don't blame her. What I didn't tell you is that our women had prestige. My son, I didn't send your sisters to school because I was foolish, like many, to think a female child won't extend my family name. Please don't make that mistake. The kind of female achievers I see nowadays have made the male gender an ordinary tag. My son, your mother, once locked up the cloth I was wearing and almost tore it because she was angry. I did not raise my hand to beat her because of a day like this, so that I can be proud to tell you that I never for once beat your mother. My son, in our days, our women had more natural beauty, though I wouldn't lie to you. Some had minor painting of their appellation mostly on their arms, the ones you people now call tattoos. But don't forget that they didn't expose any part of their body like your women of nowadays. My son, your mother, and I are not interested in what happens in your marriage. Try to handle issues without always coming to us. My son, remember I bought your mother's first sewing machine for her? Help your wife achieve her dreams just as you're pursuing yours. My son, don't stop taking care of me and your mother. It's a secret of growing old and having children to take care of you too. My son, pray with your family. There is a tomorrow you don't know. Talk to God, who knows everything every day. A chap is going on tour of a factory that produces latex products. At the first stop, he's shown the machine that manufactures baby bottle nipples. The machine makes a loud hiss-pop noise. The hiss is the rubber being injected into the mold, explains the guide. The popping sound is a needle poking a hole in the end of the nipple. Later, the tour reaches the part of the factory where are made. The machine makes a noise. Hiss, 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 pop. Wait a minute, says the visitor. I understand what the hiss is, but what's that pop every so often? Oh, it's just the same as in the baby bottle nipple machine, says the guide. It pokes a hole in every... Well, that can't be good for the... No, but it's great for the baby bottle nipple business. A dairy farmer walks into his feed store and asks the clerk, "Has your product recently changed?" "Same formula for 2 decades now," replies the clerk. "Why do you ask?" "Your cattle not eating?" "No, it's not that. It's just that their flatulence has become unbearable. It used to not bother me, but it's got to the point that I can't even be in the barn without wearing a respirator." "That's strange. Farmer Brown had the same problem with his cows a few years ago." "You don't happen to remember what he did about it, do you?" "I'm desperate here," the farmer asked. "I do, in fact," the clerk responded. He mixed 4.5 ounces of turpentine into every gallon of water he gave them. "Thanks. I'll give it a try." 5 days later, the farmer comes storming back into the feed store shouting, "I did what you said, and my cows are all dead." "Now that is strange," the clerk replies. "And why exactly is that strange?" the farmer demanded to know. "Because the exact same thing happened with Farmer Brown's cattle." The new CEO wanted to teach about productivity. After gathering the managers, he spoke at the importance of cutting out the fat, streamlining the company, numbers, and projections against the crisis, and the need for a more energetic administration. After that, they left for lunch. While passing through the offices, the new CEO found a young man, dressed in jeans and leaning on the wall tapping on his phone. Deciding to make an example for his managers who were behind him, he approached the teen. "Hey, young man, what are you doing?" "I'm texting my girl, man. What's up?" "Well, and how much do you earn per hour?" $5, man." "Well, 5 per hour, 8 hours, 5 days a week. You earn $800 per month. Here, I have $1,500 in cash. Take it and never show your face here again." The teen took the money and left the office right away. Smiling, he turned to his managers. "See? That's what I'm talking about. Cutting off the fat, removing the unnecessary, productivity." While his managers applauded him, he turned to one of the desk workers. "Just for curiosity's sake, for how long did the boy work here?" "He didn't work here. He was the guy from Uber Eats bringing us lunch, sir." 4 cannibals apply for a job in a big corporation. "Well," says the boss, "if I hire you guys, you have to promise to not eat any of our staff." The cannibals promise that they will not eat anyone and get hired. Everything is going well for a while, and one day the boss calls them into his office. "You're working well and all, but we're missing an office cleaner. Do you have something to do with that?" The cannibals swear that they are innocent. The boss believes them and leaves the office, and they all turn to their leader. "You idiots!" he screams. "Who ate the cleaner?" One of the cannibals sheepishly raises his hand. "You fool!" shouts the leader. "For weeks we've been feasting on directors, team leaders, project managers, and human resource staff, and then you go and eat someone they'll actually miss." After a long stint in prison, Kathy managed to secure herself a job at a candy shop. She arrived on the first day wearing a proper yet practical dress. However, her first day was set to be retrieving candy at the front register. The first customer came, looked at the candy, and asked for licorice. This was on the top shelf, so Kathy had to climb up and down the ladder to get it. The second customer came, checked the candy shelf, and asked for peppermint. These were also on the top shelf, so Kathy had to climb up and down the ladder again. The following customers all also wanted the top shelf candy, forcing Kathy to spend all day going up and down the ladder. At the end of the day, Kathy went to the owner, George, to ask a question. "Hey, so may I ask, why is all the popular candy on the top shelf?" George looked her up and down. "I don't think it's the candy. They, might have wanted to see your undergarments." "Huh, well, joke's on them. I don't even wear panties." Billy Bob wanted a job as a signalman on the railways. He was told to meet the inspector at the signal box. The inspector asked, "What would you do if you realized that two trains were heading for each other on the same track?" Billy Bob replied, "I would switch the points for one of the trains." "What if the lever broke?" asked the inspector. "Then I'd dash down out of the signal box," said Billy Bob, "and I'd use the manual lever over there." "What if that had been struck by lightning?" "Then," Billy Bob continued, "I'd run back into the signal box and phone the next signal box." "What if the phone was busy?" "Well, in that case," persevered Billy Bob, "I'd rush down out of the box and use the public emergency phone at the level crossing up there." "What if that was vandalized?" "Oh, well, then I'd run into town and go get my Uncle Lester." This puzzled the inspector, so he asked, "Why would you do that?" Billy Bob answered, "Well, Uncle Lester ain't never seen a train wreck." A bloke starts his new job at the zoo and is given 3 tasks. First is to clear the exotic fish pool of weeds. As he does this, a huge fish jumps out and bites him. To show who is boss, he beats it to death with a spade. Realizing his employer won't be best pleased, he disposes of the fish by feeding it to the lions, as lions will eat anything. Moving on to the second job of clearing out the chimp house, he is attacked by the chimps, who pelt him with coconuts. He swipes at 2 chimps with a spade, killing them both. What can he do? Feed them to the lions, he says to himself, because lions eat anything, and he hurls the corpses into the lion enclosure. He moves on to the last job, which is to collect honey from the South American bees. As soon as he starts, he is attacked by the bees. He grabs the spade and smashes the bees to a pulp. By now, he knows what to do and shovels them into the lion's cage, because lions eat anything. Later that day, a new lion arrives at the zoo. He wanders up to another lion and says, "What's the food like here?" The lion says, "Absolutely brilliant. Today we had fish and chimps with mushy bees." A man, known for his large frame, found himself in a terrifying situation one day when he accidentally fell from the top of a tall building. The fall was tremendous, and as he plummeted toward the ground, onlookers gasped in horror. The impact was so great that everything around the crash site was left in chaos. Hours later, the man slowly regained consciousness in the hospital, his body aching from the fall. Dazed and confused, he looked around, trying to make sense of what had happened. A doctor was standing by his bedside, monitoring his condition closely. With a shaky voice, the man asked, "Am I alive?" The doctor, though relieved that the man had survived such a fall, couldn't hide a hint of irony in his response. He replied, "You're alive, but the people you fell on died." One afternoon, a blonde sat at a table, carefully holding a light bulb in one hand and a marker in the other. She was focused, diligently writing something on the smooth glass surface of the bulb. As she worked, a curious friend walked by and noticed what she was doing. Intrigued, the friend stopped and asked, "What are you doing?" Without missing a beat, the blonde looked up with a proud smile and replied, "I'm making my father's name bright." One night, little Johnny was deep in his studies with his teacher, diligently working on his homework. The clock on the wall ticked away, and the teacher glanced at it with concern. Noticing how late it was getting, she asked, "Isn't it getting late?" "What's the time now?" Johnny, always one to find a creative solution, thought for a moment. Instead of simply checking the time, he picked up a small stone from the ground outside the window. With a mischievous grin, he threw the stone at the house across the street. The stone hit the side of the house with a gentle thud, and soon enough, an old woman emerged from the house, clearly annoyed. She looked around and, seeing Johnny and his teacher, shouted, "You rascals, it's already 2 a.m., go to sleep!" One afternoon, a beggar approached a large, elegant house, hoping for some kindness. He knocked on the door and called out, "Please, give something." The lady of the house, known for her generosity, answered the door. But today, her face reflected a mix of weariness and regret. With a polite but firm tone, she said, "I'm sorry, we don't have anything to give today. Please forgive us." The beggar, rather than leaving disappointed, looked at her with a gentle smile. His eyes sparkled with a hint of mischief as he responded, "All right, then. Just give me your number. I'll pray for you and send a message, too."
If you're still here, I'm thrilled you enjoyed the joke. Subscribing is a simple way to stay connected. Join our community and make me a happy friend.